AJ, we've got 5 more minutes on the clock, as always, for another opt-in. I hope that didn't scare you. Oh no.
Startled.
Don't want to cause a heart attack on opt-in. But yeah, so the topic this time I want to touch on is the same topic as the SDR symposium we held internally last week. The topic was maybe a little bit looser, more open to interpretation than usual. It was just SDR hacks. So we had some of our best and more tenured SDRs on as the panelists talking about just the different tips and tricks from normal to weird that they do on a regular basis or have as part of their repertoire that allows them to sort of have that success sustained over the long term that they have. So touched on a lot of different points, went in a lot of different directions, a lot of good stuff. But yeah, did you have any specific takeaways or 1 or 2 main things that really stood out to you?
I did. The big, I wouldn't even necessarily call this one a hack. I just think it's something that every SDR should be doing. But one thing that a couple of the panelists harped on was this idea of building your own nurture cadence. And I think this does a great job at bridging the gap between short-term and long-term gains as an SDR. A lot of times reps are looked at as, you have X amount of meetings you have to book this month. Don't worry about next month. Worry about that on the 1st of next month. Worry about getting your numbers in this month and then go to the next one. I think that's a bad mentality to have as an SDR. There's a lot of short-term outlooks in this role, but when you balance that long-term in, it makes those short-term gains a lot easier. So the example that these reps used was anytime you have a good QC, or if you have an ISQL, what we call at Demand Drive, sort of an internal sales qualified lead, somebody who has expressed interest in learning more about your product, your solution, whatever, but timing is off or budget is off or whatever, but they're absolutely going to be a booked meeting at some point in the future, keeping tabs on them and setting up a regular cadence where you're reaching out with either industry insights, where you're sharing information that maybe got dropped about your product, where if you see something online that reminded you of them and sort of the challenges that they're facing, bringing it to their attention and being more proactive about keeping in touch with somebody in the time between when you first interact with them and when it sort of makes sense to then have a follow-up conversation. And going beyond just like a bump email or like a thoughts, that one really irks me. But sort of adopting more of a marketing mindset and using that to your advantage for some of these high-value accounts that have a need, and making sure that you keep carving out space in their brain for your name and your brand so that when the timing is right, they've got 6, 7 deposits that you've made over a course of a period of time that kind of makes it stupid for them to not take that meeting with you. I think that's a great way of balancing like long-term gains that you can kind of bank on in the future for short-term wins.
Yeah,
if that
absolutely
makes any sense. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, and I think the marketing mindset side of that is important because it can be easy as an SDR, as a sales development rep, to focus on the sales. It's in your title, but really the role is a bridge between sales and marketing.
For sure.
The most successful SDRs are the ones that can act on both sides of that bridge, right? If it's someone's in market, it's the right time to talk to them. You can be that SDR, that sales rep for them. And if it's not the right time, that's not your job. Your job is to keep them informed of any maybe product updates, any relevant content that your marketing team is pushing out, and making sure that gets in front of this prospect that you have some sort of relationship with that's just a little bit warmer than marketing. Not only will it help marketing sort of turn that back into an MQL, if you will, but it would also just allow you to maintain a stronger pipeline so that even if you don't have maybe the number of people in your pipeline, the impact or the sort of connection you have with each of those people is stronger. So it allows you to turn those into leads when it is the right time much easier.
Yeah, you can look ahead at like October and go, I've got 2 follow-ups in October with people that have expressed interest in July, and I know that I can bank on those 2 converting into book meetings during that month. So I have 2 out of 8 or whatever total meetings I need for the month already down. Now I can focus on maybe trying new campaigns, or like you build a safety net for yourself that way.
Yeah, exactly.
What about you? What are some of the things that you picked up?
You asked before I could segue. Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of little tips and tricks, and sort of what I picked up from that wasn't quite talked about on the symposium as much was the having that mindset to be able to learn these skills. I think you go from having, right, you do your foundational training, you learn your products, you get all that stuff, and you can just coast. You can do okay with that stuff, but talking to these reps, they all found sort of different ways to increase their success in ways that work for them. I know a couple of them, actually all of them, were big fans of like double dialing. Not something we always recommend. Sometimes it makes sense, and it's an uncomfortable thing to do.
Yeah.
But they had that mindset like, well, it might be uncomfortable, but if they do pick up, and I can tell that there's some sort of need at this organization, there's usually some sort of warmth or personalization to it where they understand it's a target account, whatever it is. It's important to do that. Other reps might, like one of them is sort of known around here for using his cell phone more often than his like office phone, because he just found that it worked better. And like, is it a little weirder coming from a different number? Maybe, but at the same time, does it increase his like connect rate? Absolutely. So I think having that mindset to be able to say, hey, this is working okay, but what can I do to make it work better, is a step that a lot of reps don't take, because they don't have to take to keep their job. But if you really want to improve and move forward with your career, it's one of those necessary things that you just don't realize is necessary all the time.
Yeah, that mindset of like ever growing, ever changing requirements of what it looks like to be a good SDR, I think is so important to consider. Because like, you started in the role 6-7 years ago at this point. 7. I started in the role like 10 years ago. If I did what I did 10 years ago now as an SDR, I would be a C+ player at best. Like, there's just the way that the role has shifted means that your mindset has to shift alongside it. The activities that you do, how you approach everything needs to shift. And if you're stuck doing things like it's 2013 or 2016, you're probably not going to see success today. So I think the hack being like, you always have to look for what's different, what's novel, and how you can make that like your own is so impactful for any SDR who would be looking to grow either in their career or just hit goal. Like the little things that you can do to just make sure that you're not sweating over quota every month.
Yeah, I will say the example we gave was more of like sort of a B player to an A player, but you can do a similar thing from C to B. There's different tricks, it's different skills, but that mindset still needs to change. And I think we've seen SDRs come through here who never figure it out. It happens. But more often I'd say we see SDRs who come through here and are like, oh crap, I might lose my job. Let me take those steps. And then they're fine. And then from there, I can't think of any specific examples, but I'm sure we've had people who are like, oh, that wasn't too hard. Let me take another step further. And then from there, you can sort of figure out your career moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, I did that. I felt like there was an opportunity for me to be like, I'm bad at this. Let me get better at it. Move to a B player. And it's like, okay, now I know what I'm doing. How do I get really, really good at it? And then I was like, great. How can I get out of this role entirely and go into marketing? So, to each their own.
All right, AJ, 15 seconds. Tell everybody about opt-in.
Opt-in, quick 5-ish minute videos, actionable sales development tips, minimal fluff. You can find us on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on our Instagram, and on the website, demanddrive.com.
Yeah, I looked at the time and I was like, 12:20, this is going to be a long episode. Wait a minute.
You were in a rush. I had to get that B-roll. So
gotta get that B. I mean, what are we without B-roll, to be honest?